Hey crew, before we get started today, I just wanted to say that I hope you and your loved ones are healthy and staying occupied as you continue to social distance and stay at home. I know it's tough, but it really is making a difference. And in the meantime, I hope that you enjoy episodes of Enterprising Individuals and all the shows on the Just Enough Trope network, which will continue to come out during the quarantine, and you might even see our output increase during these months. We've actually started a new side feature on the network called Co-Videos, where I'm joined by Mikan Hana, my co-host on the Just Enough Trope podcast, to talk about the classic and modern films we are crossing off our lists while being cooped up. She's got a list of standbys that she's never seen, and I've got a whole bunch of weird movies I want to finally get to, and we're recording our reactions to them and letting you listen in. We're coming out now with new installments about 2 or 3 times a week, so subscribe to our show feed at Just Enough Trope to take that journey with us. In the meantime, I'm keeping busy, mostly with network business. You know, it's weird. I always felt that I didn't get out enough, and I felt like I was something of a couch potato. And now that I can't go out, I don't want to brag, but I think I'm handling it pretty well. Not much has changed for me day to day. I really miss movies, though, movies in the theater, and there's a local burger joint that I really like. Of course, I can't go now. I can order from them, but I just really like going there and hanging out. How are you dealing with the isolation? Talk to us. Let us know on social media, on Facebook and Twitter, and jump into our Discord and sound off. Let us know what you're doing to stay busy. We'll maybe have a supplemental episode in the near future talking about how we're all dealing with being cooped up and how Star Trek is helping us with that. I've heard that the current situation, that is, dealing with a crisis like this, is similar to dealing with grief or a loss, as outlined in the Kubler-Ross model, the 5 stages of grief. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm experiencing a personal loss currently, specifically the loss of baseball, my favorite sport. Opening day was March 26th, and of course it came and went with no play ball heard. However, I found some relief in getting to talk about an episode of Star Trek that's all about baseball. Ella Pearson of the Generations Geek podcast joined me recently to talk about Take Me Out to the Holosuite, a charming and heartwarming episode of DS9 in which our crew gets their asses handed to them by a bunch of Vulcans. But that was never the point. Vulcans can never love the game the way we do, and I hope you love the episode. And if you do, why not join our crew by going to patreon.com/EISTPOD. We've got extra content, episode recaps, live shows, and more. And with the extra time, thanks to social distancing, I'm planning on adding a bunch more content, including daily updates about Star Trek news and my Trek thoughts. Just go to patreon.com/EISTPod. And if you're not looking for a commitment, but you like the show and you want to help out, we've got a coffee as well, KO-FI. You can toss us $1 or $2 on coffee by searching for Just Enough Trope. I'll leave a link to our coffee in the show notes. Everything you contribute helps us keep the lights on here, and it means more content coming your way. And if you really like the show, tell a friend. That's it from me. Enjoy my talk with Ella. Keep your eye on the ball, and with that, let's get underway. Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Enterprising Individuals, the Star Trek discussion podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about the series, characters, and stories of the Star Trek universe. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, a.k.a. Caliban, and 350 years of human advancement in science, technology, and international statecraft, and we still can't figure out the infield fly rule. I'm joined on this episode by Ella Pearson. Ella is one half of the hosting team behind the podcast Generations Geek, a more or less family-friendly celebration of geekdom. She's also the co-host of Discoverage, a live recap and discussion podcast covering new episodes of Discovery and Picard on CBS All Access. Ella, welcome to Enterprising Individuals.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. Permission to come aboard granted. Today we'll be talking about Take Me Out to the Holosuite, the fourth episode of the seventh season of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Baseball is as American as apple pie. It's America's national pastime. But what if there's no more America? What if the people of Earth put aside their religious, racial, and political differences and united the world under a truly democratic Earth Republic? What then? Would there still be baseball? Not according to Star Trek, which has baseball's last World Series taking place in 2042, right at the apex of Buck Buckeyes' career, too. Bummer. Trek posits that the world of the future would move on from such a deliberately paced game of esoteric ceremony, but what would replace it? Spring balls for old men, and Parisi's squares is for suicidal ones, and the less said about Tsunkatse, the better. But don't cry into your Cracker Jacks just yet, because some denizens of the 24th century, American or no, still appreciate a sport that's about challenging yourself, having heart, and enjoying a sunny day outside. And death to the opposition. But we'll talk about that a little later in the show. First, Ella, welcome to the show. It's great to finally have you on a regular episode of Enterprising Individuals.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm excited.
Can you tell us a little more about Generations Geek, if our listeners are not familiar with your podcast?
Yeah, Generations Geek is a more or less family-friendly podcast that I do with my dad. And we started it when I was, I think, 14, and I'm 22 now. So it's been a trip. And yeah, we watch stuff together, all things nerdy pop culture. And then talk about it and talk about like experiencing those things across generations.
I was talking to your dad for another episode earlier in the week, and we were talking about how when you first came on the show and you first started it, you were younger, and it was more of him saying like, "Hey, here's something that I like. Here's something that I've enjoyed in my fandom, and what do you think?" Going towards now that you're older, you really determining a lot of the content as well. It's not just like him showing you stuff. It's like you're both kind of suggesting things now.
Yeah, I definitely talk a lot more too. I think it was took some getting used to. I think when I was younger to have opinions, speaking to the mic. But
right, yeah.
I don't know when this episode of Generations Geek will come out, but I just we watched The Hunger Games the other day because I was like, we always do things that you've seen at least twice before me, and like it's like everything already, and like tonight, like let's watch The Hunger Games, and then we can do an episode on it later, and it'll be like I know everything, and he was like, ooh, and then we watched it, and he liked it, so it's fun.
That's so great. That's great that you're the captain now. You're in charge.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. I'm not sure that
I read them 8 times in middle school.
Yeah, right, exactly. Actually, in this part of the movie, it's not like the book. Yeah, I don't know if we've talked about this, but do you want to talk about how you first discovered Star Trek and became a fan?
Sure. Yeah. Basically, my dad tells the story. Like, when I was very, very small, I was just like, what is this Star Trek thing that you're always talking about? Like, I had no idea. But I think I was like 3, which I don't remember that. I think I remember the first time that I did watch Star Trek, but I'm not sure because I would have been so small. He showed me the animated series first.
Yeah.
And I think I remember the first time because I think it was the episode where there's that gigantic cat.
Yeah, right. Cat spot.
Around.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, this is sick. There's a huge cat. They're like in space. Like it was like checked all my boxes, and yeah, just progressed from there.
See, that's funny because I was terrified of the giant cat episode when I was a kid, and I loved
really?
Cats. Yeah, there's just something about me. I was kind of a wuss as a kid, and anything that was coded to be scary, I was immediately terrified of. I remember when I was young, there's a character in the Spider-Man mythos called the Man-Wolf, it's kind of dumb. He's like an astronaut who goes to the moon, and when he comes back, he turns into a werewolf. And I had a record that went along with a storybook. Now it'd just be YouTube videos or something now, but like you'd play the record while you sort of read the storybook. And whenever the wolf showed up, he was like, "Ooh," like did this whole, werewolf howl thing. And that was it for me. Like, records off, have to run and go hide. I could never finish. And my mom's like, "What's wrong with this kid? I bought him this record. He's not listening to it." So like,
oh my God, that's so funny.
Well, so when Cat's Paw, which is supposed to be very, spooky and skeletons and dungeons and stuff. I was totally terrified by that.
That's so funny. My dad says that I was terrified of the blue meanies and the yellow submarine. Like I would
Oh,
have like nightmares, like
really?
horrified.
I should
Yeah, and I
laugh.
have no memory of it. But yeah, but then I would watch like Star Trek and I would watch like I think I watched The Lord of the Rings when I was in like fourth grade. Nothing.
Huh.
Not scared.
That and the children shall lead, the one with Melvin Belly, when he's coming in the pool cover and he's telling the kids like, "Oh, follow me, and we're gonna kill all the adults." That really scared me for some reason. His face melts off at the end.
Terrifying.
So, do you have like a favorite Star Trek series?
I don't know. I feel when people ask me, I feel like I always have to be like, oh, of course, the original series. Like, I feel like I always have to be like, I feel like I don't even want that in the consideration.
Okay,
It's like I think about like everything that came afterwards
sure.
as to choose a favorite because that is like just like pinnacle. I don't know. And then, I don't know. I guess it depends. I think it would be either Voyager or Deep Space Nine,
Okay.
but it's a hard call. Maybe Deep Space Nine.
That's interesting, because those are both, advanced Trek shows. I think they definitely knew what they were
Yeah.
doing at that time, and those are really great series. Do you have then, let's say, a favorite Star Trek film, either of the TOS or TNG films?
Oh, Star Trek 4.
Star Trek 4?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that was God. I think that's still the most successful, like biggest Trek film adjusted for inflation, even today. That was huge at the time.
It's because it was good. Nuclear vessels.
Yeah, right. And I think that was probably, if I had to pick something, being somebody who is a little older than you and was sort of submerged in like Trek kind of coming back when it came back with
Hmm.
TNG and having the original series. I think still Star Trek 4 is probably my real gateway into it because I remember like when I was really young when like Wrath of Khan came out, and I remember that was kind of a big
Hmm.
deal. But just having it be such a crossover thing and having it be funny, and it was in the theaters just for months and months and months, and yeah, and having everybody having seen it, that was definitely probably like a real gateway getting into it for me. The nuclear vessels.
And the Wills.
Yeah, and it's a funny episode or a movie too, and I always
Oh,
like
it's
it.
hilarious.
Yeah, I always like it when Trek goes funny. I think it's usually pretty successful. I can't think of too many. I don't know, maybe some of the Waxana Troy episodes, but I can't think of too many times that Trek tries to go funny and it really doesn't pay off.
I feel like it also helps like not only with that, but like in Star Trek 4, like the cast had such a good rapport with each other
Oh
by
yeah,
then, you know what I mean? It's like you have, I mean, we can talk in this episode too, but it's like you have this big cast, and then especially after like a couple of seasons, they're like really in it. And
they're
so
starting to
then to
gel.
watch
Yeah,
them like interact on screen, like in Star Trek 4, like William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy on screen in Star Trek 4, like amazing.
yeah, and Nimoy directing, and yeah, everybody is just
Yeah.
really hitting their stride. Um,
Yeah.
and being a little different. Everybody was a little different when the movies came back, and they were not
Hmm.
quite the characters they were on the show. But yeah, I think that's the real sweet spot of the TOS years. Although I'll stand up for five. I do like five as well. Five's another example of them going really broadly comic, and it just not working quite as well.
Yeah.
They're climbing mountains or whatever. Yeah. Well, other than it being funny, why did you choose this specific episode, Take Me Out to the Holosuite, to discuss today?
I we talk about obviously on Discoveries we talk about like the themes of Star Trek a lot, and it gets pretty like it gets dense. Like we talk about like Measure of a Man is like one of the best Star Trek episodes ever, but it's
Hilarious.
like the yeah, so funny. But the material is like heavy. The themes are like heavy.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of decided that I wanted to do an episode that was like more like light and funny, but like without like some of the more funny episodes, it's still like a little like the crew is in danger or something.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to do one that was just like a little bit more light, some good like character bits and just like really funny and like good and like you can't not like this episode, I think.
Yeah, and it takes place during the war, basically. Like the
Yeah.
war is still raging at this point,
Hmm.
but they just take this opportunity to just enjoy themselves and have fun and not worry about the Dominion or getting your leg blown off or whatever whatever else was going on. They're just taking a break. I think the really important question is, are you a baseball fan?
like I'm not like a sports person,
Yeah.
but I'll get like excited about like I don't know. I guess like if I was gonna pick a sport to like play, I think it'd be baseball. I
Yeah.
like baseball. But
Yeah.
I'm not like I have no idea what's going on. Like I couldn't tell you one thing about like actual baseball.
There's every baseball movie, I think that you know this, it tends to be about like heart and about emotion.
Yeah.
It's very
Hmm.
rare that you have even a movie like Moneyball, which came out like a little while ago, which was specifically about treating baseball like a math equation, like a game or a
Yeah.
business. Still has that like it's about just loving the game and getting out there, and I feel like that really pairs well with DS9. I mean, there's a lot of crunchy things in DS9. There's aliens and shapeshifters and this war and wormholes,
Hmm.
but I think that it is more about heart and about being a family than any other show. Even the show whose theme song is Faith of the Heart, I feel like DS9 is about those emotions in the same way that baseball is.
Yeah, well, and that's like one of the reasons why I think Deep Space Nine was able to like stand out is because they become such a family, and then because it's a space station, so you're staying in the same place.
Yeah.
So people like, people like leave and come back, whatever, but like for them, like they were able to build something like really special,
Yeah.
especially by like, well, this is like season 7, so they're really, yeah, they've done a lot.
It's
Right.
about a home and it's about protecting it. Yeah. And you're not
Yeah.
just, the other ships fly to distant parts of the galaxy and want to go home and think about home, but we're really seeing these people at home.
Yeah.
Home plate.
Hmm.
We brought it back. I wanted
Home game.
I wanted to mention really quick that I was a little weirded out, and I guess I've never really noticed it before, but as I sat down to watch this great and funny and warm episode, the Netflix advisory thing comes up. It tells you what's I think in the episode, but maybe just in the series as a whole. And it said violence, sex, nudity, fear, substances, language, and gore. And I'm like, I remember this episode very differently than the way that they're describing it.
Death to the opposition.
Yeah, death to the opposition, murder, and everything else. Yeah. But we don't really get any of that in this episode, which is, of course, Take Me Out to the Holosuite. It's the 4th episode of the 7th season. It first aired on October 21st of 1998. It was written by Ronald D. Moore, who I've run out of things to say about Ronald D. Moore. He enjoys scotch, I know that, and he used to smoke, but I hope that he's quit by now. But we've talked about him quite a bit, one of the architects of the entire run of DS9. It was directed by Chip Chalmers, who we've also talked about a lot. He's another veteran director of the Trek franchise. The in-universe date or star date, we don't know for this episode, which is true of many DS9 episodes, again, because it's a lot of people just being at home. We don't necessarily need to know what point in our mission we are, but we do know that the date is 2375. And your assignment, Ella, if you can, is to give us a 25-word synopsis of Take Me Out to the Holosuite.
Wait, let me think for a second. Baseball game versus Sisko's Academy nemesis. Do I have to do exactly 25?
It doesn't have to be exactly 25. That's a little sparse, but that is really the conflict that's at the heart of this thing. I think it's crazy to think that Sisko, who we never really see much as a young man, we see him as a commander who's entering the second part of his life, when he comes to DS9. Mm-hmm. But we don't get any like tapestry episodes really where we see him, being a young roustabout. But we just get it through the speech of Avery Brooks, halfway through the episode where he talks about this, situation when he was in this bar. It reminds me of like a scene from Good Will Hunting or something like that, and he gets in a fight with these Vulcans. And it's funny that like, we know that Vulcans experience emotions. They'll just tell you they don't, and they have them sort of under control. But I think it's a perfect setup for this 25-year grudge between him and this other guy. Like if you think about like people that you didn't like in high school or college, and whether you would still even care what's going on with them like 25 years later, but these guys like still hate each other. And of course they're both advancing in their careers, and they're getting medals, and they've both been promoted to captain, and so they still have this opportunity to run into each other and be like, oh, yeah, how's it going? Yeah, not too bad.
Well, and I love when Vulcans are like just I mean, when they're like really just like basically pretending that they don't have emotion, like when they're kind of like
Yeah.
wink about it, like when he first gets in his office and he's like, "Oh yeah, I got my medal last month or whatever." I'm like, "Oh my God, it's so good."
Yeah. Or at the end of the episode when he's like, "Why are you celebrating? You didn't win."
Yeah.
uh,
Just like so petty.
yeah. I learned some interesting facts while researching for this episode. Are you familiar with the show Fame?
The 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 dancing show?
Yeah, yeah. I don't. I think they might have rebooted it recently. I'm not sure. It was a TV
Yeah.
show in the early '80s, and it was based on a 1980 movie of the same name. And for
Yeah.
anybody who has no idea what we're talking about, Fame was kind of like Glee in the early '80s. It's about like a bunch of because it takes place at an arts high school in New York, I think, and so it is
Mhm.
students of sort of varying economic backgrounds who are all learning to dance and learning to, work at their art and craft, and then also getting into wacky situations like this one, because the plot of this episode is taken almost beat for beat from an episode of Fame called The Old Ball Game, which Ira Stephen Bear wrote when he worked on that show.
Oh my God.
It was one of his first TV jobs, yeah. And in the case of Fame, I guess the problem is that our team of protagonists are theater kids, so they're not good at sports. Instead of being on a team of aliens and future humans who don't know anything about baseball. But other than that, it's very similar, down to having scenes like the bunt scene, and a scene where the catcher has to go into the opposing dugout to tag the batter because they didn't touch the base.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so it's environmentally friendly, a little bit of recycling here going on, but that's his
Yeah.
right, I guess. The plot also bears a striking similarity to the 1976 film The Bad News Bears, where an underdog team has to go up against a much stronger opponent.
Yeah, I feel like baseball is so much like it's like about heart and stuff, and so it's
Yeah,
always like, oh, the underdog. So baseball movies are like, oh, it's the underdog team
yeah,
versus whatever, and then no matter what they're celebrating at the end, you know what I mean? But it's
yeah.
like great.
When Keanu Reeves isn't doing like weirdo sci-fi movies, he used to do these sports movies. He was in like a movie called The Comebacks or something like that, where he was like a replacement football guy with like a crappy team. And I think he was in a reboot of The Bad News Bears maybe 10 years ago or so.
I can't really picture him playing like a team sport.
Yeah, he's he's a musician, right? He's got a
I
band.
don't know.
Yeah, a band
He's got a
called
band?
Yeah, he's got a band called Dogstar. So even though he's a guy who I think he like races motorcycles and he's got like washboard abs, he does seem like a guy who wouldn't necessarily be coordinated enough to play like a team sport.
Well, he seems like he'd be like a swimmer or
Mm.
like a like track or something.
Yeah, and of course he does martial arts too.
Yeah.
Although I can't imagine him punching somebody for real. Can you? Just be
No,
like,
no.
"I'm so sorry, dude. Sorry about that." Yeah, yeah. Max Grodenchik, whom you've met, of course, and interviewed at Destination Trek, he plays Rom, and Rom is easily the worst player on the Niners. However, if you know anything about Max Grodenchik in real life, he is a huge baseball fan and a skilled player. He apparently had considered going pro when he was younger. So in all
I
of
didn't know
Rom,
that.
yeah, yeah, he loves baseball. I've read a couple interviews with him where he almost exclusively talks about baseball, no DS9. So in all of the scenes where Rom is playing, Grodenchik, you can see him throwing and batting with his left hand, even though he's right-handed, to make himself seem like a worse player. And I think it's also ironic that Rom is the player that sits out for most of the game when Max is such a good player.
That's so smart to just switch his hand. He looks goofy.
Yeah, and I guess you have to kind of keep him out of the action of the game too. Although he does
Yeah.
get the big moment at the end.
I also was thinking like it must be hard. Like even if you're not like good at baseball, I feel like everyone plays baseball when they're kids. So like like that scene where they're all missing the ball.
Yeah,
I'm like, like if I tried to miss a baseball, but like also trying to look like I was trying to hit it, like I don't know if I could miss it.
yeah, that's a great point about just Americans' familiarity with baseball, and I'm sure like
Yeah.
North Americans, Canadians too, and Mexicans.
Yeah.
Like Chase Masterson, I don't know, she might have been all conference, at softball when she was in high school, but yeah, they all have to act like they're completely helpless. And aren't they all? Isn't Kira like a terrorist and a commando. Aren't they all like military trained? Do you think they'd be a little more coordinated?
Coordinated?
But they're
Yeah.
just, yeah, they're all elbows out there on the field. This is also the first episode where we see Rom not wearing the traditional Ferengi headdress that he wears. And speaking of headwear, in the episode, Sisko is wearing a San Francisco Giants hat, and Jake is wearing an Atlanta Braves hat. And Sarah Lofton, the actor behind Jake, his uncle, Kenny Lofton, was a Major League Baseball player who played for both of those teams.
Oh my God.
There's some more baseball facts here. Avery Brooks is wearing number 15, which is a reference to black MLB player Dick Allen, who was a 7-time All-Star and the 1972 American League MVP. And he played primarily for the Philadelphia Phillies in the 60s. This episode aired the same week as the 1998 World Series, in which the New York Yankees swept the San Diego Padres to win their 24th championship. Damn Yankees. Quark actor Armin Shimmerman remembers the production of this episode very fondly, saying it was fun to have everybody outside at the park. The baseball scenes were shot at Loyola Marymount University's ball field in Los Angeles. However...
Oh my God, I toured there.
Did you really?
Yeah, I applied.
Oh,
they did not want me.
They did not want you. Maybe if you had some baseball skills.
It was too bougie. They had it was not scary, but like it's like on top of this huge hill, but then it's also like gated. So when you get there, they have to like let you in, like when you're driving, and you have to be like, oh yeah, I'm here for a tour, and then they open the gate. It was like a whole thing.
Interesting. I didn't go deep enough to find if there was some connection, like if somebody on the staff went there or something, because you feel like if it
where
was,
they chose there.
If it was a super bougie college, you think maybe they charge a lot to for them to shoot there. But just go to the state school. Go to USC or something. Ira Stephen Bear was somewhat disappointed with the episode. He felt that the script didn't do enough with the Vulcan characters, and he thought the switch to Rom as the focus near the end of the episode was heartwarming but kind of jarring, since it had been about Sisko's conflict with the Vulcan commander, and then suddenly we're doing Rom. But it's just a great end for the episode.
Yeah, well, I feel like it makes it more about like we keep talking about like baseball movies and like baseball, like it's about the heart and it's like family. And so this episode is about like the DS9 family and like them like playing like ball and having a good time. And so I feel like it was like a perfect ending to have Rom, because it felt like it made sense that they would lose because it's a team of Vulcans.
Yeah, if they rallied and crushed the Vulcans, you wouldn't have the same feeling of heart and family there. Yeah. Speaking of the Vulcans, let's talk about the guest star in this episode. Gregory Wagrowski plays Captain Solok in the episode. He'd also later appear as Cirrus in the third season Enterprise episode Chosen Realm. And Wagrowski's made a number of guest appearances in various TV shows during his 35-year career, including appearing as Scooter Riley in The Obsession, a 1986 episode of T.J. Hooker, also starring William Shatner and James Darren. There's a there's a side project I'm going to do someday, which is a TJ Hooker show, but we'll see how that turns out. Speaking of sidetracks, check this out. Gregory Wagrowski was in an episode of the 1986 CBS series Outlaws, which was about 5 cowboys who are hit by lightning and transported from 1889 to 1986, where they start a detective agency.
Oh my God.
I cannot believe I've never heard of this show. And 1986 was a year that I was glued to the TV set. I loved Automan and Manimal and all these weird Misfits of Science, all these weird crappy shows that only lasted for like 12 episodes. I'd never heard of Outlaws before.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, they should reboot that for sure. But let's get to what's really important. The box score for the game. The Logicians, of course, ended up beating the Niners 10-1, going up 4 in the first inning, scoring a single run throughout the second, third, and fourth innings, 2 runs in the sixth, 1 in the seventh, and of course the Niners had a small rally to score 1 run in the ninth, leading to a score of 10-1, 14 hits to 7, and 4 unforced errors on the part of the Niners. The Deep Space Niners manager, Benjamin Sisko, got himself ejected by umpire Odo in the 5th inning, and the Logicians manager, Solok, was ejected by Odo in the 9th, a contentious game. And the rule that Odo quotes when ejecting Sisko about making contact with an umpire was the actual rule, Rule 406, subsection A, paragraph 4, in the Major League Baseball rulebook at the time the episode was filmed.
Well, of course.
They did their homework, yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, though, that if you look at it now, though, the rulebook has been revised. So a lot of the rules that they talk about, the hard slide into second, for instance, that's now illegal after
Oh my God.
after a few major injuries, one of whom was with our hometown team. I don't know if you remember the player and whose name I can't remember now.
What, he was on the Twins?
Yeah, he was a huge sensation in Japan. His first season here, he's like fourth game, he slid into second. And I guess in Japanese baseball, they're a little more polite. So like you slide and they're like, there you go, you got the base. But whoever they were playing just planted, and the guy broke his leg, and that was the end of his season.
Oh my God.
And pretty much his career. His name was Tsuyoshi Nishioka.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. Well, the guy's alive, but
R.I.P. your leg.
R.I.P. that leg. Just a little housekeeping. We see Rom bat and throw left, of course, as mentioned, meaning I guess Rom is left-handed in universe. I'm not sure. We'd have to go back and see some scenes of him fixing things. Maybe he's ambidextrous. Esri Dax says in the episode immediately before this, after an image, that she's left-handed, but we see her bat and throw right in these episodes, so maybe she's still sorting her personalities out. Worf throws and
I feel like you have to be ambidextrous if you're a Trill. You like
after enough hosts, yeah, you'd think so.
Yeah.
So she's
do you like vibe check on Esri?
Yeah.
I feel like I never warmed up to her.
Well, you didn't have much time, especially considering like half of her episodes are her dealing with her relationship with Worf in the past and being like, I'm not sure who I am. I think that she's, in that like last run of like 8 episodes that make up the end of the series, I think that she makes some interesting moves, and I think that she starts to get kind of cool. But that episode where she's got the eraser gun and she's like trying to stop the Vulcan serial killer, that was dumb.
I just like when I started the episode, I was like, when she like walked on screen for the first time, I was like, drat.
Oh, no.
I was like, I want Jadzia.
Yeah, Jadzia
like,
would have been great. Definitely ambidextrous. Worf throws, speaking of Worf throws left but bats right in the episode, and Michael Dorn is left-handed in real life. And this episode marks the only time on screen that the anthem of the United Federation of Planets is heard.
Oh my God, I was trying to think of what song they were playing.
Yeah, that was the anthem. And I'll drop a little bit of it in here as we move on to talking about the episode itself. I don't know if you know, but Michael Piller, the producer, writer, and co-creator of DS9, is a huge, gigantic baseball fan, or at least he was. And he is originally responsible for bringing baseball into Star Trek in TNG. The episode Evolution features. That's the one where Wesley has the nanites that get out and cause havoc.
Oh my God!
Yeah, and the actor or the character of Stubbs, who is the sort of guest star in that episode, has a lot of baseball metaphors. He talks about how they'll get another turn at bat and this and that, and then he's like, "Hey Wesley, you like baseball?" And Wesley's like, "Yeah, my dad taught me baseball." And so they talk about baseball, and it's implied that it's not a thing anymore. So he brings baseball in immediately and then immediately kills it off as well by saying that it's not really a thing. And then later on, of course, it's established in If Wishes Were Horses when we meet the fake Buck Bokai on the station that the last World Series game was 2042. So it's this almost like chaotic sort of thing that Sisko has, and that he loves this long dead sport.
I feel like it can't be that niche, you know what I mean? If the Vulcans are like, yeah, why not? Let's play a game of ball. Unless literally Solok was like, here's what we are going to do.
I almost think, though, that like Solok, like you were saying before, they pretend to not care about things but can get really, into things. Solok might hate Sisko just enough to go, in 6 months we're like due to put in at DS9. What if we all learned baseball and then we just like crushed him in his little petty little team in a game and just humiliated him? I could see him doing that.
Oh my God. Convince his entire crew.
Right.
Like,
Or
no,
just
no, no,
order them to do it. Yeah. Yeah.
oh my God, can you imagine? God.
So Ira Steven Bear wanted to rectify that by bringing baseball back. Of course,
Mhm.
Sisko, thanks to Michael Pillar, has a love of baseball, but they decided to really pay homage to that in the episode. And baseball was actually a big part of working on Trek in that era. The staff would often go to games together. In fact, Michael Pillar originally proposed the concept of DS9 to Ira Steven Bear at a Dodgers game. There's an anecdote that I've heard Bear tell before about how they're at a game and he's like, I got this crazy idea. It's like, for like a station that just kind of stays put and they do this and that. And this, of course, is after Bear had left Trek, I think at the end of season 3, just because he just didn't enjoy working there very much. And he kind of convinced him to come back with this idea of DS9.
Wild.
Yeah. So if you worked on Star Trek, in that time in the mid '90s or early '90s, you definitely had probably been to a work game. Michael Pillar probably took you out and yelled at you about something while they were eating peanuts and Cracker Jacks. Baseball has been described as a timeless game, and I think that might be true, but in a negative way, as many people find it too slow in this world of apps and TikToks and et cetera, et cetera. Baseball, of course, dies in the Star Trek universe, and we might be right on track for that happening in 2042. Baseball is not doing great right now. Right now, it's not doing great. All the games are canceled because of coronavirus. But a recent Gallup poll showed last year that only 9% of people in the U.S. list baseball as their favorite sport. And that's the lowest that number's ever been since Gallup started asking people about baseball in 1937. And other recent statistics show that attendance is down in 19 of the 30 stadiums around the league.
I mean, I'm not surprised.
Really?
I don't watch sports at all, and I
Yeah.
think I could name way more like football teams than I could name baseball teams. I could name maybe 3
Yeah.
baseball teams.
Yeah. I mean, the way that it works now, as you, of course, know, is that it's all about, making money. It's all about commercialism and literally commercials and what you can sell. And I think that the NFL has got that on lock. There's only, 17, 18 games. So you can sell your cars or whatever it is. And then if you listen to a baseball game, it's like, how many Schweigert ads are we going to hear in every break and play? People complain about how slow the game is, and they've tried to change the rules and make it faster. But I think the real problem is every time anybody takes a pause, we got to throw to a Kemp's ad or or something like that. Like if you try to listen to a game on the radio, there are so many ads. It's infuriating, and you have to listen because I know we live in the Twin Cities. The Twins are my team, and I can't watch their games because I don't have. It used to be I didn't have cable. Now I don't have the digital package because local blackouts mean I can't watch the game.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so and I consider myself to be a huge baseball fan, but I haven't seen a game on TV in almost a decade, and I rarely go to games, even though I live just a mile away from the stadium, because they're so expensive. I always told myself when I was younger and I was going to school here, I'm going to grow up, I'm going to get a job in a big building downtown because that's what you do, and then when there's like home games during the day on my lunch break, or maybe I'll take like half a day in the afternoon and go and eat hot dogs and watch the game, right? Fast forward to me being an adult, I did work downtown for a long time, and the stadium was 4 blocks away, and I couldn't go because it's $35 for an upper deck seat.
Yeah, that was
It's
the next
way
thing I was
too
going to say
much.
is
Yeah.
be like, yeah, it's too expensive to go.
Yeah. So it's really frustrating for me, somebody who, I grew up playing Sandlot games, and I rushed the mound one time.
Oh my God.
We used to play these Sandlot games, and there's this one kid that I just hated, and he was a prick. I mean, like, he was worthy of hate, but he kept trying to brush me back.
Your Solok.
And then, he was my Solok, and then he almost hit me one time, and I was a pretty nice kid, as mentioned before, but I just rushed the mound to take him out. Yeah, I have a big scar on my forehead where I got hit in the head with a bat, a la Rom hitting everybody in the head with a bat.
Oh my God.
When I was a kid, and it's not my fault because like right at the formative age for me, when I was a kid, the Twins in the course of 5 years won 2 World Series. So too bad. I'm locked in. Like I have to be a baseball fan for life at this point. But you run into these things where you can't watch the game, or it's so expensive to go to one, and it's really frustrating.
Yeah, I was gonna go to a baseball game before I left to study in London for a year, and then I was trying to I was like, oh, it's like $40. I'm gonna have to drive and have to pay to park, but all the food's gonna cost so much. So I didn't go.
Yeah. And don't expect that to change like when the game comes back from coronavirus, because they're going to be looking to make up, all that money they lost. So
yeah, for real.
So anyway, it's a question of if the game is a question of being about heart, perhaps the game itself in the 21st century here is starting to lose its way. But despite all that, there are still a lot of people who love it, take it very seriously. People get really weird about baseball, and that's one of the things that I really love about it. I don't consider myself to be particularly superstitious, but I do find myself following certain superstitions. I'm a former theater kid, so of course there's all these like superstitions that you can't do on the stage, and I think that translates well to baseball, because there's a lot of things in baseball that are weird. The fact that like you can't, players will eat a certain meal before the game, like every game. Justin Morneau, who was a former Twins player and MVP in 2006, he would eat the same meal every time before a game. And this is not a good meal. He would go down to Jimmy John's and get like get a turkey tom every time. Like, can you imagine 186 games eating 186 turkey toms? And that, I don't even know about doubleheaders.
Oh my God.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Who was that baseball player? It was a long time ago. Who was that baseball player who he was like really dumb and like weird, and he would wear red underneath his uniform, and then a fire truck if a fire truck went past, he would rip his his like baseball stuff off and like sprint after to like help the firefighters. You know who I'm talking about?
I can't say that I do.
Like he would run, like he would leave like the field. Hang on. Wait, it was on an episode of The Dollop. The Rube, what is it? Waddell?
Rube Waddell.
Yeah, he he was like, I don't remember what his bit was. He was like good somehow, and so they couldn't they couldn't cut him,
right,
because they'd be winning because he was on their team. But then he would just like sprint off the field if there was like a fire, all this stuff. Anyway,
yeah, the game is. I wish that they had movie cameras or whatever back in the late 19th century, because some of the games are crazy. A lot of these guys were, I don't know, on laudanum or had tertiary syphilis or whatever, and this is all that they could really do. So you get a lot of crazy stories about these guys, and that's where that's the tradition that we're talking about. Like if you look at Trek and the fact that we're almost 55 years in here, and people are still thinking about the original series and Gene Roddenberry and all these ideas. Like baseball is similar in a lot of ways. Not changing your jock strap, during a winning streak, or
oh my God,
or growing playoff beards, or like not talking to the pitcher like during a no hitter, not even like talking about the fact that, oh my God, well, this could be a no hitter. Like you don't do that. Rally hats. Like I want to see the Star Trek version of rally hats. Like what would that be?
What's a rally hat?
That's when you, when your team is down, usually late in the game, you're trying to get a rally going. You flip your hat inside out. There's different ways to do it, but usually you wear it inside out, or you wear it with the bill sticking straight up, like on your head. And it's this idea of,
oh my God,
it's this idea of like humiliating yourself like a little bit, but that contributing to your team succeeding. That's the part of baseball that I like the goofy traditions. Just being part of something bigger than you, even if what you're part of is this dumb, slow game with a bunch of weird rules. Which, by the way,
it's fun though.
It is fun, and I have to say that the DS9 players get that right away. They might not be physically gifted, but as military personnel in a future bureaucracy, the first thing they do is dive in and learn all the rules, and they have them down.
Oh yeah, memorize them.
They're just quizzing each other at the Replimat and like, yeah.
I know. It's so cute. They're all in.
Oh yeah, immediately. They at this point, and it also shows like how much they believe in Sisko as a commander. Like at this point in the war, they're like, okay, this guy wants to do a baseball game. we're going to do it. Like he reopened the wormhole. He found the orb of prophecy and change or whatever. I believe in this guy at this point.
I know. I love seeing them like just like their trust in him and their like the way they operate like as a team outside of the like military aspect. Like they're not really making like tough decisions. They're like playing baseball, but they're still like they're memorizing all the rules. They're talking about it like off the clock.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. I was talking to David Mack about Kira and her relationship to Sisko, and I think if this isn't attributed to him, I apologize to whoever it's supposed to be, but I remember him saying that for Kira, working with Sisko is like, working in Jesus's carpenter shop.
I mean,
but can you imagine being on Jesus's baseball team?
Kira's like, oh my God.
I gotta get a hit. And she does. She gets a hit. She gets a double in this one. I was trying to put this together, like in my mind, like if you had to pick from all of the characters, let's say you've got the Guardian of Forever, so time is not a problem. What would be your Star Trek baseball dream team?
Ooh, wait, how many people do you need to be on a baseball team?
9.
I think, let's see.
I think right off the bat, Geordi LaForge, Kayla Detmer,
Ooh.
These are all out. They have a visual enhancement that gives them an unfair advantage. If you have to keep your eye on the ball, they can do that.
I think Spock and Burnham, like from Disco, like just like young, fresh, like angry.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. You mean like Ethan Peck Spock?
Yes.
Okay. See, now I thought that like Spock and Burnham are definitely physically capable and they're determined, but they're also at this early point in their career where another thing about baseball is like the mental discipline. And like I can see Burnham getting so inside her head. Like if you point out, oh, Burnham, you're kind of like shifting your hips a little bit when you swing. I can see her totally obsessing over that and then just like going on a huge slump.
Oh, she would definitely get mad. No, she would get mad.
Yeah.
But I feel like they both like the chess thing, like they're like thinking about it.
Yeah.
And they're also like they're ready to like punch some, so they can just hit the ball.
Vicious competitors, yeah. I'd want Tasha Yar.
Oh my gosh, she'd be good. What is Saru allowed if he can run 40 miles an hour?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, actually, I'd put Saru on the mound.
Can you imagine?
Like
oh my God,
8-foot pitcher slinging balls. Yeah, that'd be the way to go. And I'd want Worf, but I'd want season 1 Worf. I'd want like leap over the railing Worf, not this, later strategic officer DS9 Worf.
Yeah,
I think
a little more relaxed.
Yeah, I think Paris would have. He must know the game, right?
Oh yeah, no, he'd be perfect. Yeah, he would know what's going on.
Definitely get Tom Paris in there. Who else? Oh, Sulu's like super athletic. I think Sulu would probably be a good addition to the team.
Uhura maybe?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Like she's she's calmer. She's like level-headed.
Yeah.
League of their own energy.
She'd be a good catcher. I think she'd be good at calls and setting up balls and strikes. I mean, if it doesn't have to be personnel, geez, I don't know. Like Flint was probably Ty Cobb or something like that in Earth's past.
Oh my God.
So we could probably have him. I think any of the Enterprise people, except Hoshi, not Hoshi, would probably be familiar enough still with baseball that they would, just have a base level of competency that would be higher than our 24th century people. Anybody?
7?
Oh, 7 and 9? Yeah, she would probably be great. Yeah. Once she downloaded the manual. Anybody from the 37s would also kind of cheating, but also probably get Noonan out there. He could probably crank one out. Yeah. We haven't done positions, but that's a pretty good team so far. Nog is pretty good at the game as well.
Yeah, he is.
I think he's the one that does the flip off the back wall, right?
No, I thought it was Esri with the gymnastic thing.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, because her former
Fancy Dan
host was she's a Fancy Dan. Which, by the way, I'm sure that's a thing, but as a baseball fan, I don't often hear a Fancy Dan. But I'll take your word for it, Show.
I'd be calling people Fancy Dan left and right.
I think you're a little too Fancy Dan there. It's like, what are you talking about? Just putting my shoes on. And then, like, Data is just extremely physically capable, perhaps unfairly capable, but he can't even dance. So I'm not sure that, like, he would quite get the baseball thing.
He should be the umpire.
That would be good. He'd be very impartial, much like Odo. I love the fact that Odo's, he's famously nonplussed by a lot of stuff, but Sisko's tactic is like, well, I need the most impartial person I know. And he's like, oh, thank you.
He's like, oh, well,
what a
yes.
huge compliment. Yeah.
I am very fair. Yes. God, he's the best.
He is. This episode is like, it's cute. And I don't tend to like cute things being a tough, strong man like I am. But like I said, I just come back to that idea of warmth and the fact that in the middle of this war, I love the fact that we can still get Lita in there. We can still bring Ram in there and just see the connection that these characters have. And yeah, it's just like having just a playful episode. It's not the kind of thing that you'd expect after the doom and gloom of season 6 and what we're leading up to.
Well, I feel like it also helps. I mean, like we kind of were saying earlier, it's like everybody in North America, like you have like this base level knowledge of baseball.
Yeah.
And so I feel like you're watching Star Trek and like baseball feels like familiar, like it feels like nostalgic, even if you're not a huge fan, because it's like, oh, I played that like during recess when I was a kid, or I played it in gym, or like whatever.
Yeah.
So it feels nostalgic, but like there's this like a huge sense of community.
Yeah.
Because like you're watching them band together and you are like in it because it's baseball and they're the underdog. Like, it's so good.
And it's that well of dramatic irony that Trek often goes to with historical episodes that works again here. It's something like The Big Goodbye, when they go to the Big Goodbye in TNG and they're all fascinated by Tommy Dorsey and chewing gum. It's that thing where we're like, oh, okay, yeah, they're the fishes that are out of water. And we get that in spades here. But what I don't get is how Holosuites work. Like if Picard, Data, and Crusher are walking around 30s San Francisco, fine. But if you get 18 people who are all running and jumping and grounding balls and swinging, and they're in like this little room that we've seen, that seems like, how does that even work? Are there like extra large gymnasium-sized Holosuites for big games like this?
I've never really been super clear on the size of the holodeck. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, is it on a treadmill? Like,
yeah, well, there's
like the whole thing is like
there's force field treadmills, but there'd have to be 18 different treadmills or 19 with Odo, all running, in different directions. It just, I mean,
you're right.
Yeah, I've said before that, like, forget space travel and warp drive. Like, the technology that would make the holodeck work is the most fictional thing on this show. And then you have episodes like, what's the episode, the Nazi episode of Voyager, where they, like, blow a hole in the side of the holodeck, so people are, like, coming in and out of the holodeck just from, like, deck corridors. And you see that...
Oh, I don't remember.
You see that, like, the holodeck apparently extends 3 decks up, even though it's only maybe like 50 yards by, 20, 25 yards. So it's very confusing. And I know it's just a show. I should really just relax, but still. Like when you throw the...
It's puzzling.
When you throw the ball, it must... You can feel it, like it's real to you. But when you throw it to like you try to hit the cutoff man, it must just disappear because technically that person is only standing like 3 or 4 feet away from you. So then it must reappear like in the glove of the catcher.
That's a good point. I didn't think about it this much. Well, when I watched it, I was like, God, I wish that I had a holosuite in my home. But I didn't think about like the ball would hit you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. If the ball even exists. And Julian Bashir should really be the breakout, standout player here. Like he should be the MVP, but he doesn't actually get that many licks in the episode.
No, I feel like it's too predictable that he'd be like, oh, here I go, and like be like good at, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, like when he plays darts.
Yeah.
So maybe he's holding back a little bit, which would be honorable of him. Baseball is hopefully not dying in our world. is seeing a renaissance thanks to people like Sisko and Cassidy in the world of the 24th century. And it might be working because I don't know if you remember, but in the Picard episode Remembrance, we actually see an advertisement for the London Kings. That was Buck Buckey's team in the 21st century. We see that
Oh my God.
in the Boston scenes.
I feel like it's not like there's not like a if there aren't there's not like official like actual teams anymore, but it seems like it's like when we talk about baseball and Star Trek, it's like Wesley being like, "Oh yeah, I played with my dad. My dad taught me." And then in Deep Space Nine, it's like, "Oh yeah, Jake and Sisko play."
Yeah.
Like, and they have always played. And then it's like Nog and Rom. So I feel like it's still there.
Yeah, like pound for pound, Jake is probably the most talented human player in the galaxy. Like he's the only person. He's the only person in the galaxy who has been raised like from a child to love and to appreciate baseball. So who knows if they decide to restart the league, maybe he's got a future in that as well as being a writer.
Oh, absolutely. He so would.
I would kill. I'm sure they've probably sold it at some point, but I'd kill to have the signed game ball.
Oh my God, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about the jerseys. I was like, oh my God.
Oh yeah, Niners jerseys. I've seen some of those in the wild before. Yeah, and the hats,
but not like the ones, not like Jay Sisko. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I bet you can get those hats. Maybe not the Ferengi size 25 ones though. I'm sure those had to be custom made. I like the scene where Cassidy is giving Sisko batting advice.
Yeah,
which is great. Yeah, it takes him down a little peg, and then of course he gets real frustrated, and then gives us his big story about the wrestling match with Solok. Do you think it's weird that Jake was dressed like Tiger Woods the whole episode?
I didn't notice. Oh my God,
he's got that red striped shirt.
That's so
and
funny.
The black hat on. Yeah.
Just imagine that you're like a cadet. And you're like out at the Starfleet cadet bar with like your buddies and you're drinking, and then like in comes like the Vulcan squad, and they're just like, "Oh yes, hello. We thought we'd look at how stupid you are."
Just continue being stupid. We're just observing.
Yeah. Like the best.
And the bar's called the Launch Pad or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a real port bar, harbor bar. Yeah. Well, as we wrap up here, is there anything that you can think of that you haven't said about Take Me Out to the Holosuite?
I just really like when Sisko starts yelling at Odo and he goes, "What were you, regenerated?"
Right, yeah.
I totally forgot about that line, and then I watched it and I like burst out loud. It's so funny.
Yeah. I know that was a strike. Yeah. Now that we reach the end of the episode, let's talk My Space Dad Can Beat Up Your Space Dad. Who's your favorite captain and why? And I really need to amend this to Space Dad or Space Mom. Captain Solok.
I don't know. I guess today, watching this episode, I was thinking about how much I love Sisko.
Yeah.
Because of like, just like the way that he is, and that time that Q came to the station and Sisko just sucker punched him, and then Q was like, "Picard never punched me," and Sisko was like, "I'm not Picard." Like that is the best. So I think today it's Sisko, but that's a hard. But yeah, today.
I feel that way a lot too. I used to say Kirk. I still do love Kirk. I think I'm probably shifting more towards being a Janeway guy now, but. Whatever I'm watching, it's that person. Like even like when I watch Enterprise, I'm like, yeah, you give it to him. You punch those guys, Scott Bakula. You're my guy. Well, now that we've reached the end of the show, and you've been on this podcast more than a few times, but never on a regular episode of the show, and of course you've done a million episodes of Discoverage, so I'd be good with starting you off immediately at the rank of Lieutenant Commander. That's where your dad is. He's a Lieutenant Commander.
Oh my God, I'm honored.
Okay, so we'll go with that. What department on the ship do you work in?
Probably science. I feel like science.
Any particular field?
I'm trying to remember when I was a kid, my dad put me in a Star Trek short story, or was it the novella? And it was like what did he say in my specialty? It was like Xeno. It was like something. I think it was Xenopaleontology.
Oh, okay. So
which is sick.
Yeah, looking at the historical animals, alien animals. Okay.
Yeah, but I feel like I don't know how applicable that I feel like I want something more. Like I want to be on the bridge, you know what I mean? Like what gets a science officer on the bridge?
Yeah. Probably being an ops officer or at least being really good at sensors. I think that's so fascinating. I mean, I know that, technically if we ever find fossils on Mars, which we think we might have found microorganism fossils, but if we ever find that, it's fascinating that immediately a science will be born. I mean, it exists sort of conceptually right now, but right away somebody's going to graduate from college, being the first xenobiologist or paleontologist, and I think it's fascinating. And it really does, it's a science that, when you think about it, we don't know anything about dinosaurs. Like, we just know we found some bones. Let's try to figure out, what they were or what they did. Mm-hmm. And so you could apply that to any planet. You could just land, start digging and go, okay, I see. So the strata are like this, and here's a fossil. But as the fact, we've never left this planet, we technically have thousands of years of human history added to that science. But just landing on planet X and going, all right, here we go. Let's start figuring out what this planet's like. It's just, I would love to do something like that. Everything could be named after you.
Well, it's also like sometimes the military will use archaeologists to they're like, what happened? And then they're like, oh, hold on, I'm dusting, I'm using a makeup brush to push dust off of a rock.
Yes. Or if you're Tom Cruise, you're just shooting things in a tomb and then things come out.
Yeah.
Everything goes great. Well, Lieutenant Commander Pearson, thanks for joining me to talk about Star Trek and the Star Trek universe. If people want to continue the conversation, and they can at EISDpod on Twitter and the Enterprising Individuals Facebook page, where can people find you online?
Generations Geek is generationsgeek.com and Generations Geek on Twitter and Instagram and wherever you listen to podcasts.
That's great. And what's coming up on Generations Geek in the future?
I think we have one more London episode coming soon, and then I think that me and my dad were debating whether to finish up we have this long running Alien series going, because I think I left for London in the middle of it.
Oh, okay.
So we have I think one or two more of those to do, and then we just watched the Hunger Games the other day, so hopefully that'll be soon as well.
Yeah, hopefully. Do you think, just in your estimation, that there will be more Alien films post, what was it, Covenant was the last one?
Yeah, I don't know. Everyone hates those movies. Everyone hates Prometheus and Covenant so much.
Yeah.
That I'm not and for good reason. So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised though if give it a few more years and maybe, but they'd have to do a different spin on it. I don't know. I mean, they gave friggin' James Cameron 5 Avatar sequels, and which he, so it's what, it's more, we're gonna, what, it's just gonna be colorful,
yeah.
So
I don't, I would
not be surprised.
Nobody gave him anything. He just has the money to say, I'm doing 5 more of these. And then when Fox was bought by Disney, I guess Disney's whatever, just let him do it.
Whatever, go ahead.
We need a 3D, franchise in the theaters, so why not? Yeah, but hopefully they'll turn it around, or just stop. I think it's okay to stop.
I think it's okay too.
It's always an option. Well, thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you.
And we're signing off until the next mission. Hailing frequencies closed.
I'm Hannah.
And I'm Caliban.
And we're the hosts of the Sailor Noob podcast. I'm the expert.
And I'm the noob.
You're talking into the wrong end of the microphone.
Aye, aye.
Okay. Every week we watch a new episode of Sailor Moon and learn about monsters, fashion, food, culture, and of course, the sailor warrior of love and justice, Sailor Moon.
All right, now, what is her rank? Is she an admiral or a rear admiral?
Okay, shh. The ad's almost over. We're a couple of magical people, and every week we Moon Prism Power make up a new episode.
Steady as she goes.
Please stop that. Sailor Noob is available every Friday on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Shiver me timbers.